human trafficking is embedded in our everyday lives.
Human trafficking, a world of unspeakable horrors. There are an estimated 27 million adults and 13 million children around the world who are victims of human trafficking, and this number keeps growing by the year. We took to the streets, the interwebs, and spoke to experts, all in the pursuit of understanding what truly helped build this treacherous industry into the monstrous superpower that it is today.
Forced prostitution accounts for 22% of human trafficking. 10% is in state-imposed forced labor. But a whopping 68% is for the purpose of creating the goods and delivering the services that most of us rely on every day. In sectors like agricultural work, domestic work, and construction. That is food and care and shelter.
It is a common misconception that human trafficking only consists of sex slavery, while in reality human trafficking not only involves sex, but also forced labor, slavery, as well as organ trafficking. The living conditions of these victims are much worse than anything most of us could ever imagine. These victims end up suffering major long-term psychological, physical as well as mental impacts stemming from their poor, unsanitary and inhumane living conditions in coordination with no basic nutrition, proper food sources or health care, above the fact that many of them suffer major trauma merely due to the brutal treatment by their traffickers and the psychological impacts of being a victim of the vicious industry.
They told them, "We'll help you out. We'll get you a plane ticket, we'll pay your fees." Once everyone arrived in New Jersey, the young girls were taken away and put to work for 14-hour days, 7 days a week, for 5 years. They made their traffickers nearly $4 million.
We had the privilege of being able to interview a very well-renowned, hardworking and passionate investigative journalist cum documentary and short movie maker, Miss Mai Ramakrishnan. The accounts of her experiences and the information she shared with us on the subject was almost unbearable to listen to say the least. It was apparently common for many trafficking victims to have their homes and lands taken away and destroyed completely in order to leave them feeling helpless and optionless. Furthermore, there was a large presence of both external as well as inter-community sexual, physical and emotional abuse amongst refugee trafficking victims. This includes men, women and even girls at the mere age of 12 being raped and going through miscarriages. Most trafficking victims are either fleeing political and social circumstances in their home countries and are willing to do whatever it takes to escape or are fooled into being brought away from their countries in promises of a job and a pay, but coming to find nothing but a situation of hostage and unfair treatment waiting for them. As a result, many of these victims are left helpless in their new surroundings. Some are forced into begging by their traffickers while others have no other choice after fleeing from their traffickers and end up having to live on the streets, yet again neglected and in inhumane circumstances. Human trafficking is something that plagues our society with our mistakes from the past. It is the enslavement of the weak and less powerful, the degradation of the value for their life and the nullification for their feelings and well-being. It is the loss of humanity. Whether it be for cheap labor, for sex slavery or for sheer exploitation. It is something that must be put an end to, once and for all. With a lack of awareness and vocal outrage from the general public due to misinformation and ignorance, it is something that has gone on for much too long. It must be put an end to, once and for all, for the sake of humanity and compassion and value for the life of another.
It ought to concern every person, because it is a debasement of our common humanity. It ought to concern every community, because it tears at our social fabric. It ought to concern every business, because it distorts markets. It ought to concern every nation, because it endangers public health and fuels violence and organized crime. I'm talking about the injustice, the outrage, of human trafficking, which must be called by its true name, modern slavery.
The right to pursue happiness for so many is stripped away. It's raped. It's abused. It's taken by force, fraud, or coercion. It is sold for the momentary happiness of another. I've seen video content of a child that's the same age as mine being raped by an American man that was a sex tourist in Cambodia.
Let's help create a better tomorrow for everyone by being more vocal, more helpful, and by working together with organizations to help give people back their basic human rights. The value of one's life should never be able to be bought by any amount of cash.